Hello everyone, and this is my review for Monday Night Raw on January 3rd, 2012. First of all, I'm going to go off and say that yes, this review is coming out a little bit later than I typically do it, only because I fell asleep during Raw and did not get to see it until just recently today. So on to that, off of that, I'm going to go on and now give you my thoughts and views on Monday Night Raw for this week. Obviously, I feel like this week had, a lot more downs than it had ups. It did have some good points to Raw, and I'll get into those a little bit later. But what I just felt like was a down moment for most of Raw here was it didn't seem to have any continuity towards too many of the storylines going into the pay-per-view, or even in the creation of any new storylines going into the TLC Pay-Per-View. You had Sin Cara and Alberto Del Rio. We've seen that match plenty of times in the past. They're not in a feud right now. It seemed like they just threw that out there. They had a few other matches where they just felt like, they just kind of threw them out there for the purpose of just doing them and to fill time, which, in the way that what I'll get into what I liked, what I liked about Raw was if this was a 2-hour show, this probably would have fell under a pretty good Raw, but they were in a 3-hour show here, and it just felt like a lot of it was thrown out there together. Like I said, there were a few good points to it. Another thing I ended up not liking is they kind of lost the whole AJ section with her feud with Tamina. I mean, they could have done a match with AJ and had Tamina attack her after the match, but no, they actually went with the full match here. And where do they go on with that feud afterwards? Do they go into the pay-per-view itself with it, even after having the match, or does it just, she get thrown on the back, or does Tamina get thrown on the back burner, and then AJ goes for whatever's next on her plate after that? So I don't know where they're going with that. I felt like they missed a not necessarily a golden opportunity, but a pretty good opportunity for a decent match between the two of them. I didn't really like the segment with Vince McMahon and Vicky Guerrero. It does lead to a very interesting point of the match with John Cena and Dolph Ziggler going into the pay-per-view. It being for the Money in the Bank contract now. They made a ladder match for the Money in the Bank contract. Honestly, I think that gives a very clear indication of who will probably be winning that match in the end here. Pretty much makes me feel like, Ziggler's going to win this match and get a nice bolster going in before he actually cashes in Money in the Bank. But we'll see where they actually go on that as well. But yeah, those were a few things that I did not like. But there were some good points to it, some good matches in Raw itself. The John Cena, Sheamus versus Dolph Ziggler and Big Show match. That was a fairly fun match to watch. The Fatal 4-Way for the United States title: Kofi Kingston, R-Truth, Wade Barrett, Antonio Cesaro. Very good match, and it was a good way of putting all four of these four together. Obviously, they're attempting to continue on with the R-Truth Cesaro feud, but also continuing and putting together the Wade Barrett and Kofi Kingston sections in there was another good way of putting them together for a match, well, not necessarily for the Intercontinental title. So that was a fun match to watch as well. The storyline going on with Shield and their constant attacks throughout the night, I actually like this. It gives an indication that, they're trying to attack random people, but if you look into it in a deeper sense, and maybe they'll throw that out there as a deeper sense portion of the storyline for later, each person they attacked had been in a feud in the last couple years with CM Punk. So it gives an indication that CM Punk is the mastermind behind the whole Shield, Shield group in general. So we'll see where they actually continue on with the storyline with that. It leads me to another thing I didn't really like about the show, which was the lie detector test to end the show in general. I did not think the segment was, it wasn't very good. And in the terms of the whole lead up into what happened at the end. The ending of the segment was done really well in my mind, but the whole lie detector test, Miz asking Punk questions, it didn't seem to fit with everything in there because, Miz has never really had anything out for Punk or vice versa, so it kind of felt random putting these two together and having Miz asking questions with Punk hooked up to a lie detector test. When he was about to ask him the last question about the whole Shield and Brad Maddox deal, the Shield comes in and takes out the Miz. This leads, Kane and Daniel Bryan, sorry I lost my words there for a moment. Kane and Daniel Bryan to come out and start attacking them, and also eventually Ryback. All three of them get them out of the ring, and you have Punk just laying down on Miz again. It looks like that's how the show is going to end, but Ryback came back and pretty much decimated Punk with a table, or a ladder, a chair, and a table. And that's a definitely good definitely good way of showing off what he can do with those going into the match on the pay-per-view, and basically what could be an indication of what you will see at the pay-per-view itself. So it wasn't a very good segment, especially in the beginning and in the middle, but at the end it was really nice. And like I said, I also like the whole aspect of the Shield attacking Daniel Bryan and Kane again, and then attacking Randy Orton later on in the show. I definitely like those aspects, but overall, I would go off and say that this week's Raw was very weak. It did not. It did further a few storylines, but it did not create any new ones going into the pay-per-view, which they needed a few more to, get a couple other matches into the pay-per-view itself. So that's my review this week for Monday Night Raw. I thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.